Alright guys, for this video I got to modify my long tube headers for my 3000 GT. If you were watching my all-wheel drive conversion video and got you over here, I appreciate that. I'll put a link to that one. There's a 6-7 part series going on over there, but the issue with I got going on now is this exhaust pipe connector. It connects the front 3 cylinders to the rear 3 cylinders through a Y pipe that you see right there. Hits my transfer case. So what I'm going to have to do, and my O2 bung is in the wrong place, so I'm going to have to cut my O2 bung off, and then I have to modify this pipe. So when this thing goes in the car, I built it with a connector here in the middle. Is I'm going to switch over to V-band clamps, which should give me a better alignment here. But I have to let me flip this guy over. I'm going to cut this entire Y off, which is basically going to leave me 2 headers with a connector. And then I got to cut this guy back a little bit and then change the angle of it. So right now I need to change the angle a little bit to the left and then get this pipe going straight this way instead of it coming up and around. So to do so, I bought another Y connector that I'm going to have to angle to drop this pipe down a little bit to get a straight shot into here. But I'm going to be welding this with my Yeswelder Flux core welders. So I'll put another link in the description of a video I had where I converted this one over to stainless steel to weld the Yeswelder stainless steel flux core wire, but I've since converted this back to regular steel. But I made mention in that video I was going to buy me another one and make it just stainless steel, which I did. But in that other video that I have linked, it'll show you how to make this one electrode positive, where this one is back electrode negative. But one of the cool things, I just bought this a month or two ago, is they changed the guns on them. So this one's got a black gun, the new one's got a red gun, so I don't have to label this one as stainless steel. It'll just, by the different colored guns, it'll let me know. That way I can just not have to flip wire back and forth. I'm gonna play around with some settings on this and try to weld thinner stainless steel, because in my last video I was welding some pretty thick 1/4 inch and I had to have this guy wide open, which I don't think that's going to be the case. The wire I'm running out of this is 30 thousandths wire. So I'm going to make some test welds and then cut these connectors off and then show you guys what it looks like to weld on stainless steel exhaust tubing with flux core wire. Alright, so we're going to do something a little different here. So I got one of these units set up with steel wire, 160 it's at inches per minute wire speed. So one of the good and bad things about these welders is you control the wire speed and then it automatically adjusts the amperage or the voltage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by welding this little piece of stainless pipe. It's about the same thickness as an exhaust tube, and I'm going to weld it with steel wire until I find the speed that works best, which right now it's about 160 is what it looks like, but I'll show you what a weld runs like on this. I gotta still move pretty fast. And then I'm going to switch over to the other welder with the stainless wire in it, and I'm going to try to find a percentage difference. Does it take 20%, 30% more, and then find out what that number is, so when I do different welds, I'll know if I'm 160 on this welder, I got to be X on this welder for stainless to be equivalent. So let me run a couple beads on this and I'll show you what they look like. Okay, so this is what the welds look like. I haven't even cleaned them off or anything. This is with steel wire on 316L stainless. And then if we can see down on the inside, maybe not so much, but you can see what kind of penetration I got. So the second weld, the lower one, burned through a little bit more than the top one. The top one I was moving probably at about the right speed. The second one I was burning in a little bit. So let me stop this, clean this up, and I'll show you what they look like brushed off, and then we'll switch over to the stainless steel wire. Alright, there's the two welds cleaned off, and you can see that one right there started to dip in a little bit, and that's the one when you look on the inside you can see it started to penetrate a little bit too much, but that outer one was looking pretty good. So we're going to switch over to the other welder. I'm starting at 260. So these welds were 160 with steel wire. I'm going to do 260 starting with the stainless. And again, this is Yeswelder Flux stainless wire. Same exact 135 Pro. So let's hit one with 260 and see what it looks like. And right off the bat, I can tell it didn't do very good at all. That's not enough power. Let me crank it up to about 320 and we'll try that. So we're going to hit this on 320. So that one actually did run a little bit better, but you can see that this stuff doesn't like to penetrate very much. Again, these aren't cleaned off, but if you look on the inside, I really didn't get penetration all the way through. So I'm gonna crank this up. I think this unit goes up to 420. Move it up a little bit, maybe try about 380. A good thing to do when you're welding this flux core stainless is to clip the BB off the end of it. My camera's probably shaking because it's a little breezy out here. Well, let's try one. This is set on 380. Just looking at it, it looked like it's got a little bit more heat on it. You can still see it's riding up a little bit. And I'm using a very tight circular pattern. Really barely moving it at all. Looks like I am just getting to the point of penetration in there. So for giggles, let's go ahead and just crank this dude all the way up and see what we get. Alright, so this will be maxed out at 420. And again, this tubing that I'm doing is 316L and it's about an 1/8 inch thick. Not an 1/8 inch, 1/16 inch thick. Yeah, I'd say I could probably take that thing all the way up to 420, but I'm kind of liking this one here. What I said was 380, I believe it was. Let me hit one more 380 right here, and then we'll clean them up and we'll take a look at them. So yeah, I'm kind of liking the 380, and actually on that one I just welded that in a straight line, and I started to get a little bit of full penetration down there on the inside. So let me clean these up, and then we'll take a look at them again and compare them back to the steel. So I just hit these with the wire wheel a little bit. This one right here was the first 380, and that one I think looks really well. Everything else seemed to ride kind of high. These all looked cold. That was the 420. The 420 is doable. It just lays a lot more material down, and it rides a lot higher because of that. But, you know, I ran this one at a 380, and if I slow it down a little bit, it actually starts to penetrate. I think I might have just been moving too fast. But that 380 right there, 380 inches per minute, did really well. But when you look at these, you can see just how tall they are. And I ran basically the same gun speed and similar pattern, and you can just see how the steel wants to penetrate more and lay flatter. And this was 160 inches per minute. I don't know what that translates into on power. Again, this video is if you want to use one of these Yeswelders to weld stainless. But I think 380 is the good setting. So what I'm doing today actually is building a merge for my car, and I'm taking two 2-inches. I got to clean these up, putting them together, and then merging them into a 3-inch, and I'm going to try and do that with this welder. So let me get these cleaned up, and maybe we'll hit some licks and I'll show you what it looks like. I got a little excited and didn't start my camera, and I ended up doing a stitch welding on this, since this was a butt weld, so I wouldn't burn through, but it actually turned out rather nice. I did both sides. So now I got to cut this off and then put the extension on it. Alright, so I stitch welded that guy together. Next step is, this is 3-inch. I cut the end of a piece of pipe off that already was expanded. So this is just a little bit bigger than 3, and then this is the 3 side. Stuck it in my Flux down here so that it wouldn't get out of round. But I'd like to do a continuous weld around here and not stitch around this entire thing. So I set me up a little practice piece here, and I played around with the settings on the welder. So right now I'm at 320 wire speed, and then I forgot to tell you guys about this button right here. See how that says +3? When you set the wire speed on this, it gives it a determined voltage. But you can take that and move it up or down, all the way down to -3 to +3 voltage to give it a little more horsepower. So I've been playing with this, and I think, you know, here's a couple little welds I did, but like this guy right here burned through there because I got close to the edge and went a little too slow. But I think a little bit slower wire speed and more power might be it. So let me get set up and we'll weld that dude. Alright, so this is 320 inches per minute +3 voltage. So I wanted to practice a start and a stop. Now I want to pick this up because it's too hot, but you know, it didn't do too bad. Sorry for the camera shaking. There's my inside, so I was just getting full penetration, nothing too much. But it looks like I definitely got a good seal around that, which is, you know, it's not going to be the prettiest, but as long as this thing is sealed up and stuck together, I think we'll be okay. So let's move on to that other piece. As a reference on the welds, I had this exhaust system done at a professional shop, and they used just regular steel wire, and you can see how terrible of a job they did, not only welding, but you know, using that steel wire, man, it just rust. Alright, just to kind of wrap this video up, these were some stitch welds that I was doing because I kept running out of, every time I tried to run a bead, it was like I was losing power. And what I discovered, which is kind of a JV move on my part, is I had this long black extension cord plugged into my welder, and it wasn't big enough, and it was starving it of power. So now I got a one I made up that's a 12 gauge Romex that is giving me all kinds of power now. So that's a tip there. Make sure you have a large enough extension cord, because this thing is running wide open 420 inches a minute plus 3 volts. So again, these are what the stitch welds look like, and they look absolutely terrible, as you could tell. But then I was able to play around and start getting some full runs, and was getting some really nice runs out of it. You know, even like up here, had some good ones. That was a start stop. But I got to hit this weld right here. I got to weld around this guy to wrap up this exhaust system. So let me run a live bead for you guys, and then we'll call it a day. Get this set up in my little holder here. Again, it seems like every day I'm out here it's breezy, so camera might get a little shaky. Or we're gonna hit us a little run on this, and then I'll show you what it looks like as soon as I'm done. There, so you can see it runs a pretty nice little bead. It's a lot bigger than it would be, you know, if it was a TIG weld. But one of the interesting things about this stuff, if you can see it, as it cools down, the slag like pops off of it, which is pretty crazy. I don't know if you guys can see that, but yeah, so you can weld up some exhaust with a $100 welder, some flux core stainless. Like, look at that, and almost all the slag has popped off of it, which is pretty cool. Just make sure you got a good power supply. And another thing I'll show you as well is I've been kind of doing a cup pattern like this as I weld, and stay right ahead of the bead as I go. And doesn't do too bad. It's not a showpiece, but it'll get the job done. Hope you guys liked the video. Comment, subscribe. See you on the next one.